Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and again, our very special guest, Benjamin Surmi with Koelsch Communities. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
So, we had Benjamin on before talking about tech, and it was so fascinating. We're like, we want to do more. We really want to educate our clients as much as possible and talk about how much, because just the enormous amounts of tech gadgets that you have and know about was very exciting for me. So let's kind of recap a little bit and let's talk a little bit about. It's my understanding that you're kind of a fan of tech and you think it's the solution that can help seniors with dementia.
Well, I don't know if I would say it's the solution. I think just like when we invented the washing machine and the dryer, it radically changed the life of women across the world, right? I mean, there was so much time spent doing laundry that having a career, doing art, doing anything with life was really difficult for many people for thousands of years, right? The washer and dryer come along and radically transform how we can use our time and transform specific subcultures within larger nation groups. So I think also the same thing may be possible as we care for people with dementia, right? One of the big things that people living with dementia experience is wandering away from their home, whatever that home is, whether it's assisted living or a residential home, or they're falling, right? They're falling and nobody knows that they're falling, or they're in some kind of dangerous situation and family members don't know what's going on. So what happens is the loved one, which most of the time, again, it's also a woman in most of the world, is concerned about their partner, or it's a son or daughter who is concerned about a parent, and they're either sleeping by the front door at night. I've literally heard this. People have come into my office at the memory care community where I used to work. I'm sleeping by the front door because dad is going to leave and I need to make sure that he doesn't leave while I'm sleeping. So I can't sleep, right? So we're talking about significant impact to caregivers' lives due to these little behaviors that might only happen once a month or once a year, but they're so concerned about it happening that it impacts their daily life. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've had clients that have had wandering relatives.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I have. They were actually very entertaining in the sense of he couldn't figure out how she was getting out.
Right.
So then once they determined that, it was like, okay, there's nothing we can do to, we've got to think about a different option now because this is not working. And so,
Yes.
exactly. I'm a huge fan of, I'm a huge fan of technology, especially if it can help us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of my gadgets that I'm absolutely in love with and I had just upgraded was my Apple Watch. And because it can do so many neat, nifty things. And so, like I said, I'm a huge fan of that. And so, and I find that there's lots of watches everywhere, lots of different kinds. And so, do you have one in particular or a few in particular that you think are very helpful for seniors?
Well, here's, I think, more of where I come from. Is not focusing on a specific tool, but focusing on the decisions that need to be made to select the right tool. So we'll mention some tools, but first, I think what's important is for families to look at a few key questions. The first question is, what am I trying to solve? Am I trying to know when mom falls? Am I trying to know that she's okay because she can press something and I can talk to her and she can talk to me, whether she's at the grocery store, the gas station, in her bedroom, in her bathroom? We can have a two-way conversation. Is it that if something happens, I want 911 to be alerted? Or if something happens, I want family members to get a text? Is it I want to know when they leave a certain space or a certain area? Is that what I want? Right. So that's the first thing, because all of these tools, none of them do everything. This one does this one does that. And so you have to really know what it is I want. And then maybe some tools will have a little bit more, and it's a plus, but I need to know what I absolutely need. So what are the core needs? That's going to be really important. Second, the question is how are you going to ensure they're actually using it, right? Is this a situation where they're invested and they'll put on the watch, they'll put on the pendant, they'll put on the jewelry? Is it a situation where you have to kind of sneak it onto their person, so it needs to be embedded in something that they wear every day where they wouldn't necessarily go without it? Is it something that a care partner is going to put on the person, or is the person going to be expected to put it on themselves and somehow remember to put it on, or it's such a habit they're going to do it anyway? So that's the second question. So first one is, what are we using it for? Second is, how are we going to get it on the person? Because at this point, most things that track some sort of leaving, going away is something that someone wears. There are now some new tools that are getting better at fall detection in the home without any kind of wearable. So Chirp is a company that has developed a tool. It's called mychirp.com, and it's not using any kind of camera, anything like that. It's using various sensors placed throughout the home, and uses thermal and radar in order to detect what's going on in the home. And at this point, they haven't quite launched. They're about to launch and get on their wait list, mychirp.com. And what they're doing is they'll be able to sense if someone fell, as well as if they left the home. Those two things without wearing anything. So that's an example of not needing a wearable, which again comes down to this question: will they wear something? If the answer is no, then we might as well not even go down that road. We need to start looking at these sensors in the home that might be able to help us. So those are the first two questions. The third question is, how often does it need to be charged? Right? Because if I only come and visit my mom once a month, my mom has dementia and can't remember to do key things, is she going to remember to charge a watch? Right? Like, is that kind of useless to put something in the home that she needs to remember to do? Now, if you can have a phone call with her once a day and be like, hey, Mom, is your phone on the charger? Great. And she's following directions. Great. Then that might work. But if not, we need to either look for a wearable or a device that's plugged in and that does not need to be charged, because I'm only coming once a month. And so it needs to stay charged and working while I'm gone. And of course, each wearable has a different profile of how long they last. Some will last for a week, some are 3 days, some are 2 weeks. And so that's another question that the family needs to look at, is how often will someone be available to check that it's charged? Or, and if the answer is 6 months, 1 month, we may need to do a plug-in model of something. And then the other question is, do you need to have a cell phone nearby for the device to work? I should rephrase that question. Does your loved one always carry a cell phone? Because if the answer is no, then that cancels out half the products. There's a lot of products out there require you to have a phone with you for it to work, right? And so you're carrying it in your purse or whatever, but it's using that cell signal, it's using Bluetooth and stuff. And for a lot of people, that's not realistic if we're dealing with dementia and people forgetting things, right? So we have to eliminate key things by asking good questions. That's the starting point. Now, any questions from you before we maybe talk about some of the specific technologies that people could look at?
No, I'm always fascinated by how much you know. So keep right on going.
So I kind of break things into some different categories. You have these watches, Theora Care, Buddy, Xantheon, Lil Tracker, and Fall Call. And these watches are designed to track your location, notify family if you're leaving what's designated as a safe area, detect falls, provide two-way communication, provide an ability for someone to press a button and be able to alert I need help, or be able to just text the family, hey, dad left their city block, right? Dad's not in his normal zone. He's gone, or he's been out of it for a certain period of time. Some of them will let you set a time period. Maybe it's normal for grandma to walk to the grocery store and back in half an hour, but if she's gone for more than 2 hours, I want to know. Those are the kinds of things these watches do. And again, each watch is a little different and exactly what it will do. So you have to kind of have your shopping list of what you must have before you start looking at these options. But that's their claim to fame, is wear it on your arm. It'll tell whether you're falling or not, and it will tell your family if you've left a certain area. Now, some technologists will argue that many of these watches are still not fully capable of detecting a fall. They're the ones that are selling pendants, and they will argue that their pendants are a much more reliable way to detect a fall than a watch. However, families will need to make their own decision as if someone's not going to wear a pendant at all, then maybe the watch is better, even if it doesn't detect every single fall, or maybe it detects too many falls, right? That there's issues with certain watches detecting things that are not actually, I'm laying down and all of a sudden 911's calling me, right? That's some of the issues that we're dealing with the watches. So the watches are the first category. The second category would be jewelry. Trellaware has created an entire line of jewelry that is designed as a pendant. And so you can just press the gemstone and be able to alert loved ones that you need help. And so that's an option for someone who really wants no privacy invasion at all, wants a very dignified, elegant way to continue to live with fashion without any sort of, I look like I need help, right?
Yeah.
And then you have shoe inserts. So these would be soles that you slip into shoes, just like if you had plantar fasciitis or something and we're using special sole inserts. The same kind of thing, except within the sole insert, there's a GPS tracker that is using a cell signal to notify family members if you have left a certain area, right? It notifies family, dad has left the house, dad has left the block, and it's just in their shoes. So if you have 2 pairs of shoes in the house, you put 2 of them in there, and now you're good to go. As long as dad wears shoes. If dad doesn't remember to wear his shoes, then you're out of luck. But as long as dad puts those shoes on, you're okay, right? And then we have things like the GeoBit, Giobit. This is about the size of an Oreo cookie. It's a white little chip, little tab. A lot of people would use things like this for tracking their keys or tracking maybe a pet or another, a purse or something like that. And they would, put their GeoBit in their purse or put that, in their jacket or something. And if they can't find it, then they can locate it, things like that. So the GeoBit would be an option for giving real-time alerts to families when the item is in different areas without the person really knowing what's going on. Because it's so small, you could buy a few of them and stick them in key items of clothing or in a purse or a wallet or something, and the person not really know that's part of their life now. Because sometimes with dementia, we're just in a frame of mind where no matter what anybody says to us, we feel we're 30 years old, we feel we have a career, we feel we're normal, and nothing anybody says is going to persuade us that I'm not 30 years old and I need to go to the military today. There's just nothing that will persuade us. And so sometimes families need something very discreet as an option. And I think, so everything I mentioned right now, like they work pretty well from what I've seen in or out of the home, right? Which is part of what I was thinking about when looking at these things, because it really doesn't help too much if it's something that you have to have in your house for it to work in a lot of scenarios. Now, there are some scenarios where really most of what people care about is in the home. If that's the case, then I really would look at the non-wearable options, right? Because if you're really just concerned about mom at home, and is she leaving the door? Is she falling at home? Then the non-wearable built-in options are probably worth looking at, because it's going to be less stressful for the family to have to think about charging something, or to make sure that it's connected, or to make sure the mom's wearing it, if it's just always on, right? And so Chirp was one example. It uses radar and infrared, and you put it in different rooms, and it's monitoring for nobody's been here for a while, or there's been a fall. VAYYAR, VAYYAR, these are round circles that get placed in each room that can detect falls within steam and in the darkness. And you just put these on the walls. There's no camera. It's very dignified. There's no invasion of privacy, but it is watching to see, is mom using the bathroom at all, right? Is mom in a situation where she's falling, or she hasn't gotten up for 10 hours, right? It can measure a variety of things. It can tell if visitors have shown up or not. How often have these visitors come, right? And so it can provide a layer of sensing what's happening in the house without any cameras and no audio recordings, which some older people are going to really shy away from that. And then one other option I'll mention, two other. Nobi is a lamp. So Nobi sits like any other chandelier, any other lamp, and it is watching for falls within a big radius around that lamp. And so you put them in a couple rooms, and this lamp is, again, a dignified way to put something in the home that no one would have any clue was actually watching for falls. And then the final one that I'll mention right now is Smart Watcher. Smart Watcher is designed to work with wait, no, that's not right. Sorry, VAYCare. VAYCare was the one I mentioned earlier, with a leather. And so what's interesting about VAYCare is what their pitch is Alexa Together has been really helpful for seniors. As long as they could say, help, I need some help, Alexa Together can contact family members, etc. However, if you can't say, Alexa, I need help, then it doesn't help you. Where VAYCare integrates with Alexa Together. So if it sees that you've fallen, if it sees that something wrong is happening in the house, then it can go ahead and connect with Alexa Together and say, hey, you need to check on your mom, right? You need to check on your dad. So that was the other one I wanted to mention, was how VAYCare connects with Alexa Together, because a lot of families are starting to use Alexa right now. And so that's kind of an additional sensor that can help Alexa not only hear, but see without seeing.
So how are these tools empowering seniors?
So the first thing is, a lot of caregivers are seniors, right? I'm an 80-year-old, 70-year-old trying to take care of a mom or dad or husband or wife with dementia. And so I have been in some ways disempowered in a cityscape that's built for cars, a cityscape that's built for people with full cognitive capacity. Most of our cities are not developed to be welcoming to people with different cognitive capacities. They're developed to prioritize people who have a full cognitive set of tools. And so we're disempowered just by the fact that we live in cities that weren't designed for people with all types of cognitive abilities. And so now I'm caring for this person in a city that was not designed with any sort of cognitive ramps, right? We have wheelchair ramps that make going to the bank and the store accessible, but we don't have cognitive ramps. We don't have tools and cityscapes designed for people with different cognitive abilities. And so I'm disempowered as a senior who now is taking care of someone in an environment that's hostile to them. And so the more that we have tools that empower that care partner to be able to live a more normal life, we're really empowering that care partner to have a more normal life, to not be just overwhelmed by having been taken away from everything that they've enjoyed in their life. They can't go to the theater. They can't go visit a friend and have coffee with them. They can't do a lot of the normal things that they've done before. And maybe they're staying up all night long watching the door and they can't sleep. And so my first answer is, it empowers the senior who's caring for someone else with dementia or autism or any other kind of cognitive challenge. And then it empowers the older adult who has dementia, by giving them perhaps the opportunity to live where they want to live as long as possible. If I enjoy my senior living, my assisted living, I work with Koelsch Communities, and we have these assisted living communities that are designed for community, for friendship. I'm enjoying my friends. I like going to the dining room. I like where I am. But because I wandered away once, now I'm being told I need to move to memory care. And now I'm going to lose my apartment. I'm going to lose my washing machine. I'm going to lose my friends that I've spent 5 years with. And sometimes maybe it's just a tool like a watch that can empower me to continue living where I want to live and not be made to move into a setting that, I have a lot less freedoms. I may not be able to leave on my own ever again. I may not be able to have an apartment with any sort of cooking device in it ever again. But if I just have that watch, or I just have that other GPS souls, it empowers me to continue living where I want to live. Does that answer your question?
It does, eloquently. And so most definitely. And so, Benjamin, you have always have such good information. And so I just wanted to thank you for being on the show. How does somebody find you if they're looking for information?
They can email me at bms@koelschsenior.com, KOELSCH senior.com. They can call me 360-867-1900, or they can go to our website, koelschseniorcommunities.com.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.